Hello, welcome to Ride4Rufiji Moment 41. And as you can see the Confederation Bridge behind me, we're just on our way into Prince Edward Island from New Brunswick. So this afternoon we're in Matthew chapter 15, and Graydon asked me specifically to talk about Jesus' encounter with the Canaanite woman in chapter 15 verses 21 to 28. And I actually really love this story. I've been kind of captivated lately by these stories of Jesus's really personal and intimate interactions with people. And we don't have an account of every interaction Jesus had during his earthly ministry, but a lot of the interactions we do have are with women, which is very significant because at the time, rabbis generally didn't take on female students. They weren't really interested in educating women as much, especially in religious matters. And so for Jesus to go out of his way to find ways to minister to women, I'm sure you've heard this before, but it was just so culturally abnormal. And so this story is such a beautiful example of the care that Jesus had for people, and also the plan that Jesus had to bring salvation not only to the Jews, though he was the Jewish Messiah first and foremost. Salvation is from the Jews, and but the plan all along was for the whole world, even back as far as Abraham. And so I actually just love this encounter so much. And as with so much of Scripture, I think we can't really take this single meeting, this one single instance on its own. We need to take it in light of Jesus's previous interactions with people and his greater mission. When I read this story, two other of Jesus's conversations with people come to mind. The first one being the meeting Jesus had with the Roman centurion, who was also a Gentile, as this Canaanite woman was, but also who demonstrated incredible faith. At the time when Jesus met the Roman centurion, he had been finding very little faith among the Jews in him as the Messiah. And yet this Roman centurion comes to him and says, "Lord, my servant is sick, and I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof, but if you would just speak the words, I know you could heal him." And Jesus said, "I've not even found this kind of faith in all of Israel." And so I think the story with the Canaanite woman is a similar thing, where she's a Gentile woman, and Jesus is coming from having dealt with the Pharisees and all of their negativity, and he had come from Nazareth, where he had sort of been rejected by his own people in his own hometown. And so this encounter he has with this Gentile woman reminds me so much of the meeting he had with the centurion, where her faith is just so great. But the other story that I'm reminded of, which tells us not as much even about the woman or the circumstance, but more about Jesus and the way that he continually interacted with people, in that the story of Jesus and the rich young ruler. In that story, it's really interesting. We see the rich young ruler coming to Jesus, and he says, "Good teacher." And Jesus says to him, "Why do you call me good? Only God is good." Is Jesus saying here that he isn't good? Is he saying that he isn't God? No, he's saying he is God. And the rich young ruler seems to miss that entirely. But Jesus just throws that in there as kind of a roadblock, and he wants to see what the rich young ruler is going to do with that. And he actually misses the point of it. And the next obvious roadblock that Jesus throws to the rich young ruler, which is really the point of the whole story, is his wealth. And you know, he says, "What must I do to be saved?" And Jesus says, "Keep these commandments." He said, "These I have done." And then Jesus says to him, "Sell all you have and give it to the poor." And now that wasn't something Jesus told everyone to do. In fact, he doesn't tell everyone to do that. I suppose some people may feel that God has called them to that, and they should be obedient, but it's not the mandate we all have to sell everything we have and give it to the poor. That was a specific thing that Jesus told the rich young ruler to do, because his hurdle, his roadblock, was his wealth. His roadblock to the kingdom was his wealth. And continually Jesus, through people's burdens, their baggage, through their roadblocks in their way, and said, "Can you overcome this in coming to faith in me? Can you overcome this specific weakness you have, or this specific idol you have?" in coming to faith? Is your faith greater? And for the rich young ruler, it said that Jesus was sad because he failed. He couldn't overcome it. He went away sad. The rich young ruler, he went away because he had so much wealth and he couldn't overcome that roadblock. And in the conversation that Jesus has with this Canaanite woman, who, by the way, he has gone very far out of his way to meet, it said that Jesus retreated from the Jewish regions because there was so much tension around him, and it wasn't his time yet to be handed over, but also the people were continually trying to make him king because of the miracles he was doing for them. So he retreated, but he retreated further than necessary. He retreated all the way into Gentile territory, to Tyre and Sidon, where he met this woman. And because our God is not a God of coincidence, he retreated there to meet her, with the intention of meeting her need. And she comes and she says to him, "Lord, my daughter is possessed by a demon." And Jesus says to her, I came for the Jews. You're a Gentile. I didn't come for you. And if you know anything about the historical realities between the Israelites and the Canaanites, you realize there's so much conflict here. And this woman has sort of humbled herself and stepped totally out of her comfort zone and approached the Jewish Messiah and asked him for a favor. And he says, no. He says, I didn't come for Canaanites. I came for Jews. For some of us, that would be like, fine then. You throw me, you just sort of toss me aside. Whatever. My pride is wounded. And fine then. I don't need you. But the woman was so humble and came back to him and pleaded with him on her hands and knees. And he says to her, "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." Jesus is saying here, I am the bread of life, and I have come for my people, the Jews, which is true. Jesus' mission was to the Jews, and in his time on earth, he spent a lot of time with Jewish people and speaking to Jewish crowds and addressing Jewish groups of people. Of course, the plan, as we know, was that after he ascended, he would give the mandate to his disciples to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. But at this point, even as far as the disciples knew, the vision was just the Jews. And so Jesus is saying, I am the bread of life. That's me. And why would I take what belongs to the Jews and give it to you? What the woman says is so profound. She says, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." You see, she's basically calling Jesus cast off crumbs. And he kind of takes it, because really that's what had been happening. Jesus had come to the Jews that they would feast on him. He came to be the bread of life, to sustain them, to satisfy them, and yet they cast him off as though he were crumbs. They cast him off as though he were something to be discarded. They cast him off the table. And the Gentiles were waiting. They were hungry. Like a pet dog at the foot of the table whining for scraps. The Gentiles were hungry for something to fill a void. And Jesus kind of takes this from her and accepts it. I came to be bread, but the Jews treat me like I'm scraps. But the Gentiles are willing to take the scraps because they're hungry. The Jews, they're satisfied. Their bellies are full. They don't know they're hungry. But the Gentiles know it. And I think even for the disciples, this would have been sort of a crazy first glimpse into what their mandate would be after Jesus ascended into heaven. That after Jesus left this world, they would be sent to the ends of the earth, and to the Jews, but also to the Gentiles. And so I think this is kind of a first taste for them of that reality. And I think this story in our day, where we're so wary and we're so afraid of this prejudice that we don't know how to take this story, and Jesus saying, I came for the Jews, and talking about dogs and scraps. But if we get hung up on that, we'll miss the point entirely, because that's not what Jesus was saying. He was talking about himself. He was talking about people's need. And in the end, he was addressing this woman's faith. It's amazing. Jesus says to her, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. You see, she was able to overcome that roadblock of pride. Jesus said, I came for the Jews, not for the Canaanites. And she said, please. She stepped over her pride, and she continued to humble herself before him for the sake of her daughter whom she loved, and because she had so much faith in a Messiah that was not her Messiah as far as she thought. She calls him, "O Son of David." She's saying, I understand you're a Jewish Messiah, and I understand you're Jewish, and I understand that I'm a Canaanite, and there's all this history behind us. And so I think it's a challenge for us, as for the rich young ruler in this story. It's also a similar challenge. You know, what of our pride, what of our idols do we need to step over in coming and falling before Jesus' feet as she did? But also to realize that the kind of faith this woman had honored and glorified Jesus so much, especially coming from Israel, where he had been meeting with so much opposition and hostility and distrust. And it's just a beautiful story. And I think it's a story to study and to learn from. And there's a lot more in it, of course. But I have to go because the battery's going to die. Okay, this has been Ride4Rufiji Moment 41, on our way to Prince Edward Island.